Here we go. All right. Let's see if I would like to invite you to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Play ball.
By myself,
Weighted on this side.
they want to keep the skill levels about the same.
Oh. Spicy.
Okay. So it looks like we have everyone here. Public comment. Would anyone like, or either one of you would like to address the council for something that's not already on the agenda? Mary?
Yes, thank you. I attended the Wednesday night meeting for the capital improvements plan. We were outnumbered by staff, but I want to thank staff for a really good presentation. It inspired me to write a letter to the editor. You all may have read it. I think we need way more public participation because this is very important time for our entire city. So however we do it, let's get more public participation and more voices into the melee and see what we can come up for the next 25, 30, 50 years. Thank you very much.
Mary?
And on that, Mary, I would like to see more young people participate because 30, 40, 50 years from now, that's the people who will be affected most by it. So they should have a voice. I'm saying I'm
That's what
old.
you heard? Can you promote me?
I think Scott's the best mayor. Know what you mean? Oh, no.
Okay. You waiting for your turn, Kel? All right, I would make sure I can see Christie. There we go. All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Give motion to approve consent agenda items A through C.
All right, there's a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Right, I don't see Linda on here.
If she's on,
Oh, I see. Two participants. Can you bring Linda in?
Should just come invite to be promoted.
yeah, there she is.
Okay.
She's,
There you are, and Linda, you're in control of muting and unmuting and making.
You're good to go.
Okay, I'd like to thank you very much. I don't know if other members of the Corps of Engineers Portland District are actually participating. So if you could, if there's a Chris Badai that you guys could also include as a panelist, it would just be nice because I'd like for, the Corps would like to actually say a brief statement. But if they're not here, then I'll stay. Oh, there's Chris.
Yep,
Thank you.
Linda, Chris. Were you expecting anyone else, Linda?
No, I think that's it.
Very well. It's all you.
Can you hear me? This is Chris Badai.
Hi, Chris. Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear.
Oh, okay. I don't know how to get my video on. We don't use Zoom. Here we go. Am I not allowed to do video or?
Should be a camera on the lower left should be a little camera.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Chris.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to attend your council meeting. My name is Chris Badai. I'm the project manager for Bradford Island. It's a Superfund site now. EPA listed Bradford Island as a Superfund site in March of this year. And so we're going through the circle process of doing public outreach, and we've hired Linda and her team as our contractors to help us with that outreach. And part of that is conducting public interviews and talking with you folks and finding out who else you know that we should be talking to. And I'm going to let Linda provide those details about the public outreach. But I just wanted to thank you for allowing us to attend your meeting and to provide you some information about the Bradford Island project. Are there any questions for me before I turn it over to Linda?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, Linda, do you want to?
I will.
Take
Thank
it.
you so much, Chris. And thank you. We really appreciate this, City of Stevenson, for allowing us to participate. Briefly, Liana has provided very helpfully an example of the fact that, you know, the Bradford Island websites and the fact that we are hosting interviews that will go through until about mid-August. I would really strongly encourage you, if you are interested in learning more about this process and having a voice as part of the community involvement program. We are in the beginning stages of this. We're conducting what is called the interview process. This interview process, which is input from the community, will help us identify our outreach that will be incorporated into the community involvement plan. I'll keep this brief. But having said that, we are going to be conducting interviews through at least mid-August. We would love to hear from you. You have my contact information and my email, but in case you wanted to get a hold of me more directly, please feel free to contact me at 719-290-3765. And we look forward to hearing from you, as well as from anyone you think that we should also be speaking with. So if you have any questions for me.
I've got a couple of questions on the project. I don't know what you're going to get into. But just in general, what are the primary pollutants of concern that you're focusing on?
Chris?
This is Chris speaking. And in the river, there's two operable units. There's the river operable unit and then the upland. In the river, there's PCBs is the primary contaminant of concern. In the upland, it's mostly metals, sandblast grit. We conducted sandblasting operations there in the past. These are all legacy contaminants, and so there was sandblasting done. So there's metals associated with that. There's some PAHs and other items such as pesticides, which I think are pretty minor. They're mostly PAHs in the upland, where we had a landfill for a number of years. There used to be houses on the island that were removed a long time ago, but they had a landfill where they would bury things like paint cans and pesticides and stuff. So that landfill is an area of potential concern with those type of contaminants. There's some mercury on the site from light bulbs. There used to be street lights where these residents were, and mercury vapor lamps. So those are the types of contaminants we're talking about. There was also some volatiles, I believe, and they're from storage of fuels and solvents on the site that are no longer stored that way, but they're remnants of that in the soil. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, mostly. Was it also a dump site for old electrical transformers that would leak BPAs?
Well, that was what was put in the river. And so they leaked the oil, which is the source of the PCBs. Okay. So that we identified 3 debris piles along the shoreline of Bradford Island. In the past, like around 2002, I believe, we had divers go in and remove all the equipment. And there was also household items like washing machines and just garbage that they just dumped in the river. That's what people did back then. And this was a long time ago. So we discovered all this stuff in the river. We had it all removed, and we tested the sediment and found a lot of PCB, some mercury from the lamps and so forth. And so we went in 2007. Some of you may have been aware of this. My predecessor, Mark Dasso, had barge mounted equipment that came in. They had divers go down, basically vacuum up the sediment along the north shore of Bradford Island and tried to remove most of the contaminated sediment that way. And they were successful. Initially, the fish sampled after that were a little bit higher because you tended to stir up all the contaminants. But we have recently done sampling there in 2020, and we've done some recent sampling this spring, and the numbers are much lower, but they are still elevated and remediation is still required there. But a lot of the high contamination is gone. And we think that, you know, it's not a real sandy kind of typical contaminated site because it's right in front of the spillway, and you have a lot of high currents that go through there. And what we found when we sent a camera down, when we installed some instruments, was that we discovered there wasn't a lot of sand, and it was mostly kind of a rocky substrate, cobbles and such. And we're thinking that the oil from those transformers leaked into that substrate, and it's actually in the cracks and crevices. And so that's what we're dealing with for some sort of capping of that land underwater. So the invertebrates can't crawl down in there and get coated in oil, and then they would become part of the food chain and contaminate the fish and all that. So that's kind of what we're looking at in the river. Does that make sense?
As far as timeline, as far as things like timeline and best and the end result, what are your what's the best reasonable expectation?
Well, because it's been put on the national priority list, which makes it a Superfund site, our agency has to negotiate a federal facility agreement because Bonneville's a federal facility. And so EPA and the Corps need to negotiate that we're in the process of doing that. And we hope to have that negotiated and signed within a year. And then in that agreement, we agreed to the site management plan, which kind of lays out what the next steps in the near term. And then each year or so we'll negotiate as we go forward for the next step. So we were pretty far along on the upland, actually. You know, following the circle process, you're supposed to investigate, find out kind of the limit of the contamination, and gather enough information to conceptually develop your remedial designs, alternatives, and you put all that in what we call a feasibility study. And we're revising the upland feasibility study to have all the latest data and all the areas of potential concern. And once that's done, then you put together a proposed plan that goes out for a 30-day public comment period. Excuse me, and that feeds into a record of decision, a ROD. Excuse me. And once that ROD is signed, then you move into the next phase of work, which is a remedial design phase. And you take more sampling and you try to hone in on the footprint of where remediation needs to occur. And then you go into remedial action, where you have a contractor actually go in there and implement the design for remediation. And on the upland, I can tell you that we have agreement within the region for the landfill and an area we call the pistol range, which is a former shooting target practice, and it's mostly lead contamination there. So those areas, the alternative, remedial alternative is basically to remove all the contaminated soil, dispose of it properly, and that's the best long-term solution. So those two areas are pretty well settled. The sandblast area, we took some samples about a year ago, and we're analyzing those samples, and that's helping us to develop alternatives for remediation in that area. And then we also have source control, so we don't recontaminate the river. So those are the things that need to be buttoned up to complete the feasibility study. In the river, we're still in the filling the data gaps and getting enough data so we can put together what the remedial alternatives look like. We are in the process of hiring some experts to help us out with that. folks that have been involved in circle work and remediation in river, because this is a dynamic environment. You know, when the spillway is spilling, we have currents going one direction quite rapidly. And when we stop spilling, it kind of recirculates the water and it runs along the north shore of the island, the opposite direction. So we have to account for all that. And so we're hiring a contractor to help with the modeling, hydraulic modeling, and all that feeds into the design for how do you get a remedial design to stay put in an environment like that? And that's going to be quite challenging, quite expensive. And so we're still at the early stages, I think, in the river for the feasibility study to develop those remedial alternatives. But it would follow the same circle path. Once we get the feasibility study done, we do the proposed plan, then the ROD, and then we move into the design phase and so forth. So those two operable units, and again, we have to negotiate with EPA. They may not agree with what our plan has been all along and what we've been working toward. They may want to expand the operable units. I don't know. That's all part of the negotiations, and so that may delay the work too. So I guess to answer your question about how long this will take, I have no idea. It's going to take a long time, but everybody wants it to happen sooner than later. Nobody more than myself. So I'm going to keep pushing to get some work done and get the cleanup done, especially on the upland. We know a lot about the upland that I think we can move forward there.
Right. Thank you.
Well, and I'm going to just add one additional comment, which is, and the public involvement process continues throughout throughout the planning phases and the implementation phases. So there will be regular updates. We're hoping at least semi-annually. So to keep everyone apprised, as well as updates, you know, to the websites and posting news postings, et cetera. So we're hoping to get better and more engagement throughout this process.
Were you folks aware of Linda and her team? They were on site last week in person, and they were making their rounds trying to talk with people. I guess you're aware of that because you invited her to this meeting. But are you familiar with this interview process, and have you provided any input yet?
I have not.
That's the first that we've seen it as a committee, as a board.
Okay, and Linda should be able to provide you contact information on how to sign up for an interview and provide some information. And we certainly would appreciate if you could help us get the word out to the community, because this is all about community involvement. And you know better than we would who to talk to and how to contact them. So we would certainly appreciate your help in that arena and getting the word out and getting as many people in the community as possible to participate, because that's very important. One thing we'd like to do is have the community form what we call a community advisory group, and it's led by the community. We would participate. We would provide periodic updates to the CAG, is what we call Community Advisory Group, and answer your questions and take your feedback as we move along this circle process. And when we have products we produce along the way, such as a sampling plan, we provide that to the community and ask for your comments and feedback and input on that sampling plan, for example.
Mary, we do have a question or comment from the audience.
Hi, Mary Rapar from Stevenson. Several years ago, there was a meeting over in Cascade Locks concerning this issue, actually. And a number of people gave reports and then nothing happened. But previous to that, there was also a group that came here for the Bradford Island cleanup, was what it was called many years ago. And
yes.
One of the things that we proposed, we the public, those of us who were worried about health effects, proponed for was putting up signs saying that pregnant women should not eat any of the fish from below the dam. And nothing ever happened with that. So that's one area that I think really the public health aspect needs to be addressed.
Yes, I don't know about the meeting at Cascade Locks. The Columbia Riverkeeper may have put that meeting on, but we weren't involved in that. I am aware of CAG meetings, if you want to call them that, that were held back in the 2000s. This was before they did that big cleanup I described in 2007. We went through this process initially when we determined this was a CERCLA project, and this was before the listing, of course, that happened this year. And what we did was conduct the public interviews, just like we're doing now. We put together a public involvement plan. They stood up CAG meetings. I don't think they called them CAG. I think they called them SIG or something, Community Involvement Group. And they held them, I think, at Bonneville's auditorium. They would have evening meetings and the community participated. And there was a lot of interest right up until the 2007 cleanup. And once that work was done, I think that group voted to kind of disband and wait until more work was going to be done. But they didn't see a need to meet regularly anymore. And so we are restarting that effort. We feel like since the site is now a Superfund site, we need to re-engage the public and jumpstart that whole process again. So you're right. We did have these meetings previously, and the community voted to not have them anymore. The other thing about the fish, the state health department has issued a fish advisory from Bonneville Dam upstream to, where is it, Merkle Creek or
Yeah, Ruckle Creek.
yeah, and they said that the fish advisory is for resident fish only. So your migratory fish like salmon and steelhead are still okay to eat, but for resident fish like bass, the advisory says do not eat any bass because of the high levels of PCBs. And that advisory is still in place. We have posted notices all around boat ramps and where people fish. But we learned last week when Linda was on site and we went down to where people were fishing and talked to them, and they said, yes, they were aware that these signs were posted, but no one came and talked to them and explained not to eat the fish. So that's our do out, is to meet with you folks publicly and explain the seriousness of the fish advisory and to not eat the fish, the resident fish that is, and make sure people understand that's a hazard to their health. So that's on our list of things to do, is to get the word out. And if you folks can help get that word out too, it is not safe to eat bass and resident fish that are caught in the forebay of Bonneville Dam.
Are you reaching out to the native groups as well?
Yes, we're definitely reaching out to all the tribes that are involved. There's 4 treaty fishing access tribes, the Warm Springs, Umatilla, Yakima, and Nez Perce. And we have been in communication with them. There's 3 other tribes, the Cowlitz, Siletz, and Grand Ronde, that are being kept informed of this site and progress. So yes, we are reaching out to the tribes. And we would love it to have them be part of the CAG. What we're hearing from one of the tribes is they would prefer not to, because they're a sovereign nation, but it would facilitate communication, I think, if we could get everybody in one room and give the information and get the feedback from everybody. But I understand their need for consultation, and we have done government to government consultation specifically with Yakima to make sure they're informed of what's going on. That happened just last April. We had a government to government meeting with them. And so the federal facility agreement I mentioned was between the EPA and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. but there'll be support agencies signing on to that, which include the Washington Department of Ecology and Oregon DEQ. So they will be participating in those negotiations on the FFA, because they're all regulatory agencies.
Great, thank you, Chris. Any other comments? All right, well, we thank both of you for joining us this evening, and we'll probably be looking forward to talking to Linda sometime soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
this
much.
opportunity.
Thank you.
All right, Kelly, you're up.
Don't eat the fish.
I appreciate that note. Okay, so I just had I have wastewater.
Well, hang on, Carolyn. We got Kelly up first.
Oh, sorry, I thought it said Carolyn, you're up. My bad. Sorry, Kelly.
Almost. You are almost up.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you for taking the time. I wanted to share our strategic plan from the Stevenson Downtown Association. That's me on the right. I'm Kelly O'Malley McKee. I'm the Executive Director for the Stevenson Downtown Association. On the left is our board president, Tabitha Wiggins, co-owner of Walking Man Brewing, and together we're leading the ship. That is a 501c3 nonprofit here in Stevenson. Should I have a?
I don't think we're that fancy.
So just a brief history, just so some of you I haven't had the honor of interacting with much. So back in 2016, with the effort of many community leaders and volunteers, the Stevenson Downtown Association received this 501c3 status. And then a few years later is when we became an affiliate, an official Washington Main Street community, and then which means also an affiliate of Main Street America. So today, our mission is to promote and revitalize downtown Stevenson and enrich our local heritage. And our vision is, by embracing the Main Street approach, we envision a historically preserved, economically vibrant downtown where locals and visitors alike come together for community, culture, and connection to the Columbia River. So we are one of 36 communities in the state of Washington as a part of the Washington Main Street program. And they are under the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation as a program managed by the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation. And just so happens that that group of 36 other communities were represented here in Stevenson. They just left yesterday. We gather 3 to 4 times a year as executive directors from across the state. And they pick different locations to have our meeting. And this is the first time it was held in Stevenson. So I got to show off our community, and so many of them, for so many of them, it was their first time visiting. So that was outstanding.
When you go down to the streetery eating lunch, I walk by, I'm like, it is packed. I don't know what's going on. That's why. Okay.
So I mentioned we are part of Main Street America as well, and that's a network of 1,200 communities and neighborhoods across the United States that follow this concept of building stronger communities through preservation-based economic development. So what that means is that we adopt this concept of the 4-point approach, or the Main Street approach, and that means that we will commit to those 4 tenets of economic vitality, promotion, outreach, and design. And essentially that means there are 4 different volunteer-driven committees that help move forward these elements. So back in 2021, at the very end, our board of directors met to discuss our priorities for 2022, of course, and strategic planning came up as one of 3 key priorities for 2022. And that's them. Those are our board of directors. And so it just so happened that after we identified this as a key priority, our mothership, Washington Main Street, they announced that they had a transformation strategies planning grant available to work directly with Burke Consulting out of Seattle. So we applied for that. And in early 2022, we found out that we won this wonderful grant to work with Burke. So that process was a 6-month strategic planning effort. So it wasn't just a long Saturday like most of our strategic planning sessions have been in the past. This was a really in-depth process, and we felt like it was a really great opportunity, especially since I'm fairly new. I started in 2020, and the organization is fairly new. So in that group of folks you saw in the photo, many of those communities have been around for 10 years, 20 years as Main Street organizations. And so they've got a lot of experience where we're kind of on the starting point. So this was a really great timing to go through this really in-depth process. So that included having a steering committee. We did a community survey, and we got over 300 responses that helped inform our direction. We did 5 interviews with diverse key stakeholders from downtown. And then, of course, many, many meetings with Burke Consulting, and they really steered this whole process. So what is the plan? So part of the Main Street approach actually includes this concept of a transformation strategy. And that's where it took our steering committee a little bit of time to try, we have very intelligent people in our steering committee and in our organization, and our community leaders are very well versed on how to conduct a strategic planning process. But what makes us unique as a Main Street organization is this concept of a transformation strategy, which is the foundation of that Main Street approach. And it's the singular overarching statement that describes our method for which we will revitalize and strengthen downtown Stevenson. And it's different than a mission statement, which is more of an overarching. This is a very targeted. So our transformation strategy that we came up with through the strategic planning process is that we activate the downtown district through placemaking and business support to make it the preferred destination for Stevenson area residents to spend time. So that might sound a little bit, oh, Stevenson area residents, that's a very targeted audience. And like, yes, it is. So one of the many items that we heard from with our stakeholder interviews and our community surveys and our steering committee is kind of 2 overarching themes. One is that our organization often gets confused with the Chamber of Commerce, because the Chamber of Commerce has been around for 3 decades. They do so much for our community. They're a real pillar of our community. And people just thought that we were maybe a part of the chamber. So and we also, of course, know that the chamber does handle tourism for our community and for our region. And we also heard from area residents that sometimes we focus so much on tourism that we kind of forget about our locals. And we all understand, our organization very much understands that most of our businesses here fully rely on tourists. So by saying this statement as our transformation strategy, it is not to disregard any of that. It's only to find our own lane, to differentiate ourselves from the chamber and tourism focus, that, okay, this is a way that we can help improve our downtown, and maybe do some of our efforts in the off season and not in the summer when we have a lot of tourism. Placemaking, we referred to that in that statement. What is placemaking? Well, it means a lot of things, a little jargony, But it really is all about strengthening the connections between people and the places that they share. So, you know, gathering places like the Streetery and streets and parks and whatnot. So there you go. So I mentioned that transformation strategy, and that has to stretch, see that graphic there, it has to stretch through those 4 pillars of the Main Street approach. So we created primary goals for each of those with that transformation strategy stretching through each. So I won't read through all that nitty gritty. You hopefully received the booklet in your box. But you'll see here, we do have a key goal in the strategic plan for each of our 4 points of the Main Street approach with economic vitality, promotion, design, and outreach. And really all of those connect to that placemaking or business support concept. And then within each of those, these list our strategies for each goal. So with economic vitality, of course, the goal is to activate downtown, generate economic activity, cultivating those public places. And then we have these 5 key strategies for how we will do that, how we will lead in the community as the nonprofit organization here. And then in that right column is how we see ourselves supporting other organizations' leadership, such as the city and the chamber and the county, et cetera, et cetera. Promotion, our goal, you know, enhancing that residents are aware of coming downtown. So, and how do we promote businesses? The business community here are our neighbors. So they are our locals, they're our friends, they're our neighbors. How can we ensure that they will be supported year round by our residents? So again, 4 key strategies of how we'll do that, and then 2 of how we will support other entities. Design, you know, creating that welcoming atmosphere, highlighting our unique character, improving our appearance. Again, our strategies and how we'll support others. And then outreach is all about really our organization and how we will not only create awareness of who we are, especially compared to the chamber, since that was a big point of feedback, but also expanding the opportunities for locals to participate in volunteering and being a part of all of these committees or one-off projects to make our downtown better. Okay, so what's next? Basically, we're in this first period of really pushing this publicly. And then we're doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff with each of those committees and trying to target out year 1, year 2, year 3, how we plan to reach those goals. I would love the opportunity to be able to report back to council and, you know, at a periodic juncture, so I can keep you all updated on these goals and where we stand and how we can partner together. And this is my favorite quote. If you probably have heard it, several of you probably have, because I put it in every single presentation of mine. Downtown is important because it's the heart and soul of any community. If you don't have a healthy downtown, you simply don't have a healthy town. And that is Ed McMahon, not the Ed McMahon, but the chair of the board of directors.
You might think he's the Ed McMahon.
Yeah. So any questions?
Who picks the cover photo?
I did not pick the cover photo. I dumped about 50 photos into Burt Consulting's file folder, and that was their choice.
We have celebrities in our midst.
Yep.
Mhm.
I do have some booklets if anyone didn't get one, and I would love to leave some at the front desk if I'm able.
Of course. So I wear a couple different hats in this situation, couple different committees, and obviously I'm sitting here in this chair, but I've seen strategic plans roll out before. Never this cool, never this slick, and never this effort. And being on the committee that was part of that, I'm going to pat myself on the back too. This is a great product that we have delivered. And I totally agree with that quote. And I treat it that way. It is a very beloved resource for us. So very proud to be on the committee.
Well done, thank you. Very well done.
Questions? Anyone online?
And I know this big crowd was intimidating. You did a great job.
I know. Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Right. Now, Carolyn.
I think they did a great job picking the cover photo myself.
As I say, one of the celebrities in our midst. That's you.
Yeah, I think that was actually off my phone, Kelly. So I should probably have my name at the bottom too, right?
I think we gave Pat Alba the photo credit because you were in the photo.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. I think he probably took it, right? Yeah. So it's the photographer, probably not the phone, that gets the credit. Fair enough. Wastewater updates. There's a staff report, but just kind of high points. Main D sewer extensions complete. Thanks Crestline, thanks community for being so patient with that. All the road closures and the work that was done along the Loop Road and the Upper Frank Johns.
And Carolyn,
2021. Huh?
Carolyn, there's been some interest already, yeah, in connecting to that extension, or did I mishear that?
No, there is. There has been. We weren't able to get one home that was like at the tail end. We weren't able to get them, snuck in. It was at the very end of the project. And then I think there are another couple of folks that are interested a little bit further up. So yeah, as people, I think the more we hear about that interest, the better we can plan for, making that extension a priority. Because there is a second phase, which is further up Loop, further up Frank Johns. So
Perfect. Thank you.
yeah, good stuff. The Rock Creek Drive work, the 2021 collection system work, their interceptor is installed. So the main big pipe that runs along Rock Creek Drive, the force main that runs under the bridge is in progress. Some people may have been impacted by that, the single lane closure across the bridge. We still got a couple weeks of that, so hang in there. The wet well is installed and they're working on their outfall, replacing the stormwater outfall. So still some activity going on for that project, but they're starting to get close, which we're excited about at the wastewater treatment plant, because it means that they're no longer dewatering to us. Wastewater treatment plant upgrades, we're really excited that we had our groundbreaking last week. They are, really kind of gearing up, locating, moving, bypassing utility lines that are in the way of new structures. They're starting to do some preliminary excavation and figure out their temporary power, construction power needs, mobilization. I have been in communication with the Fair Board. I called the horse superintendent and spoke with her about making sure to get folks down and do their best to get, folks down to get some experience with the construction equipment that's going to be kind of right outside of their arena during their, their showing over the fair weekend or week. And then David Waymeyer actually also reached out last week or the week prior. And so have been in communication with him as well. He's the fair board president, maybe, if that's the right title this year. So have been, trying to make sure that everyone involved in the fair that could be impacted will understand what those impacts may be.
So
But
Carolyn, what are the impacts that we're talking about? Because, I look at that whole project down there and I'm thinking, I know what it's like down there during fair without all of this going on. And, I look at that and I see the possibility of a lot of dust flying around and noise. And so I've got some concerns about that, as well as traffic flow. So how is that all being addressed?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess, kind of dust, I heard you say, dust control. The contractor is required to provide dust control as part of their contract. So, they shall have a water truck available to make it, to make sure they keep their dust on site. That's part of erosion and sediment control measures, and part of their, I'm sure it's part of their permit. Noise, yes, I expect that there will be noise. There'll probably be, and I was kind of sharing, so back in the day, I participated in the fair, rode my horse, and I remember any little flag she would freak out about. So I expect that the folks that are showing the horses will hear backup alarms from equipment backing up. They'll be mostly excavating probably still at that point. Maybe the banging of a dump truck tailgate or something of that nature. There shouldn't be any, I haven't heard of any sort of like driving that would be required for like temporary shoring. I haven't heard that that's something that would be occurring, but that would be quite loud. I don't expect that. So I think it's probably just unusual sounds and intermittent sounds, and loud sounds is what we could expect. But no jackhammers, no constant, constant construction noise. Access in the contract, and we worked with Skamania County on this. So it's called Rock Creek Place Drive. It's like another version of Rock Creek Drive, but it's kind of that main access. The contract is required to provide 25 feet of access, and they're required to keep it open. So that road won't be blocked, but the parking won't be available along that road as it usually is every other year. Does that help?
Well, I have concerns about the impact. Is there any way to pause any of the construction at all, like during the actual showing in the arena, that kind of thing?
It would be very, very, very expensive.
It'd be very, very what?
Expensive to do that if we issued a stop work order to them. It would be outside of the contract that was issued, and it would be putting all of their staff, all of their equipment on standby, and we would pay for it.
Okay.
For the week, it's probably over $100,000 to do that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
What else you got?
I don't have anything else for wastewater.
Any other questions? All right, we'll be seeing you soon. Ben?
You would have a recommendation to fill a current planning commission vacancy. Planning commission interviewed 2 candidates. They've put forward Charles Hales as appointment, resident on Chesser Street. The other candidate they thought was very good too, and they offered to have him appointed as an ex officio member to the planning commission. That's a member that only comes in to vote when 3 or more planning commissioners have a conflict of interest on a project or are unable to be there for decision making. So the permanent appointment would be Charles Hales. When we do the appointment for the council vacancy and the committees there, we'll put Tony Lawson on that for consideration as an exhibition.
No, I saw the comment about because they, when they interviewed the one at the meeting and all the other interviews, and how highly everyone spoke of both of the candidates. So that's pretty great to see more than one person in the community be that.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just one person was like, I love this guy. It was like everyone everybody had basically the same response, which was, says something.
I'd move to appoint Charles Hale as to the planning commission position number 3.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Bye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, Carolyn, welcome back.
All right, so next up, we have type D right-of-way permit request from the cemetery district, Community County Cemetery District for Iman Cemetery. I think everyone's able to access the staff report, but so I'll just kind of run through that word for word. No, I'm just kidding. So the cemetery district requested a right-of-way permit to utilize both Holly Street and like the tail end of Iman Cemetery Road for parking. They submitted 2 separate right-of-way permit requests. So I looked at them independently in your staff report. So Holly Street, it's old pavement, dilapidated pavement that's kind of offset within the right of way. We have 50 feet there. I realized my math is not great in that photo or in the figure 2. So apologies. I'm not accounting for 2 feet somewhere, but there was a request. So currently there's no right of way permits issued along Holly Street. There was a request for one, an application for one by the neighbor Larry Krug. Is Larry here? I can't tell.
That's right.
No,
He is here?
Oh, he's not here. No.
No.
Oh, okay.
He's not on the.
So yeah, he's the neighbor. He submitted the right-of-way permit because there are some older fruit trees that run along the edge of the Holly Street right-of-way, right along the edge of his property. So at the time those were submitted, or that application was submitted, the Public Works Director did not grant that. However, they did put the trees on the register. So the city register. And so I'm proposing that we do allow the cemetery district to utilize some of that right of way for parking, but to be outside of the tree drip lines. So that puts them about 20 feet from the center line of the existing roadway to the west. I suppose I could just ask if anyone has any questions about the Holly Street component of this.
I do. This is David.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the proposed motion, you talk about removable at the district's expense if required. What are you talking about there?
So that would be like if they put in any gravel, if we needed to have them remove it. That's kind of standard for all of our right-of-way permits. It's like if you put anything in the right-of-way and we want it back, you have to take it all out.
Would they be required then to replant grass in there and all that too?
I guess they could be.
Because right now it looks pretty good. The
Yeah.
cemetery district does a really good job of keeping that mowed and maintained. And I understand that, every now and then, if they have a funeral up there and use it for parking, I can see where that grass, it could get a muddy mess if there was a lot of rain and a lot of traffic. But there haven't been that many uses of that area up there. And so that's why I was curious about what types of changes to the right of way are going to be included in this permit.
They just asked about gravel. So. that
And
would
are they-
be-
And are they required to run that through the city and for us to monitor what they're doing to that right of way?
Like what
Or
type
do
of
they just have a
materials?
carte blanche use of the right of way and they can do basically whatever they want to with it?
That's a great question. I would need to read the language on the, all of our permits come with like kind of a standard language on the back of them. And I believe it says you can only do what you're permitted to do. And our permit would be for, I mean, we can make our permit say whatever we want.
So related to that, will public access be maintained during non-events?
Would public access be maintained?
Yeah, to like Holly Street, for example, could I go park on Holly Street if I need to?
You can now.
Yeah, I can now, but if this is granted, can I still?
Would they be able to like put up a fence between Holly Street and their parking so that you
Or-
wouldn't
or
be able to
maybe-
use their parking?
Yeah, or no parking signs except event parking only or something like that?
Yeah, they haven't asked about that. Those are things that I can certainly, put in the approval if we, if you guys decide you want to approve it.
I just don't feel comfortable giving them carte blanche, do whatever you want with the right of way
Yeah.
without the city being part of that process. And I think that you as the public works director or someone needs to, if they decide that they want to do something with that right of way, there needs to be a process where they bring that to you or whoever for approval.
Yeah, you can always insert additional conditions like Carolyn was suggesting, including making any improvements subject to the Public Works Director's review and approval. You can even say prior review and approval would be probably wise, so it's just not after the fact. And also making certain that public access is maintained at all times. So you don't want them using this exclusively. I think maybe during their own services or something that, if it fills up, then it fills up. But it's not intended that their use of the right of way would be exclusive to them. It's just an additional use of the right of way that exceeds just a regular public use.
That's exactly my point.
In theory, right now, right, the permit that we would be granting would be, use of right of way, but what we're saying they can do is put gravel on it. Like that's in there, is it not? Or is it? Right, it doesn't say they can do anything else other than put gravel in the right of way. I believe,
I don't remember seeing that.
maybe not, maybe I'm totally,
I haven't drafted it. This is the staff memo, so
Yeah.
I haven't drafted it.
no, it's just priorities, okay?
Yeah, there was just discussion about possibly putting gravel down. It wasn't.
Yeah, that's all they've asked for at this point, but we can certainly stipulate like, yeah, that they would have to,
They've got within,
Well,
it says potentially adding gravel as needed for continued use as parking for Ivan Cemetery
mhm,
on their application itself.
right.
mhm. So they haven't said anything about signs. I would expect that if they wanted to do like gravel, they'd have to put in like an application for improvement, right, Ben? And as part of that, they would have to say, oh, how thick the gravel is going to be, and we're conforming to city standards for
Would it, would
subgrade
it
or
have,
whatever.
That's
would
why
it
I'm
have to
suggesting.
fit? Oh, sorry, Ken, go ahead.
Well, that's why I'm suggesting you make it subject to the Public Works Director's prior review and approval. So she has control then over, the quantity, the thickness, how it's, how it's spread, and if it needs to be removed at some point, how it would be restored. So I just think you kind of leave it in the hands of your professional. That would be my suggestion, at least.
Putting that verbiage into the actual permit that's granted, make sure that that's in there.
And I would like to ensure that public access is maintained.
Got it.
Other than that, I have no objection in general to this.
So let me ask you this, Ken. Would this be a motion to approve with the suggested changes by council? That be, or do we need to see this again?
No, I don't think I guess you could maybe even bring it back to the council on consent, just with the final version. But, I think staff has a pretty good idea what the council would like to see. And, if Carolyn has questions, she could run that by me as far as any particular language to include. But I think we have a pretty good idea of what you guys are after as far as the approval of this. Unless Carolyn, you have any other questions, I think I have a pretty good idea what you're after. Maintain public access and also making any of these improvements that they have to put the plan for those improvements before Carolyn, before they do it. And then also, if Carolyn needs to qualify, any removal or restoration after the fact, that she can do that. So I think we can include any of that language in the permit and then bring it back to you guys on consent. So it doesn't have to be an agenda item if that works for you.
I would just as soon see what the document looks like, as opposed to just
It would be,
saying,
it'd be part of the consent agenda. So it would be part of the, Ken's suggestion was to make these changes, put it in the consent agenda.
so that we can see it.
Yeah. So
And then make it,
you'd have your
yeah,
eyeballs on it.
that's fine.
And if you had additional
wanna-
comments, we could pull it out.
Yeah,
and
I
make
want
that a
to,
separate-
see the
Yeah,
document.
that's, yeah, pretty much. But now, before we go too much further, Ben says that we do have a letter that was submitted.
Letter from Larry Krug, 9 Northwest First Falls Road. I understand from Carolyn S. that the Spaney County Cemetery District has applied for 2 use of right-of-way permits, one for the end of Iman Cemetery Road and the other for use of Holly Street. This seems to be in conflict with the use of right-of-way permit filed and dated 6/14/2021 and granted to me. My questions are as follows. 1, why would 2 permits be issued for the same roadway? 2, if the intended use would be for the cemetery to be able to park cars for funerals, why would anyone require a permit to park of an existing right-of-way? 3, do they intend to be able to block access to other property owners at any time? Do they have other intentions? I do not wish for this application to be approved. Please have this email read at the appropriate time in the forthcoming meeting. Thank you.
And he addresses some of the concerns that we had that we would like to see in the.
I went up
right?
and actually went up to take a look at this last night. And actually got the measurement, took measurements and things. And while I was doing that, both he and Mrs. Krug came out and talked to me. We talked about those issues. We talked about what our public works director was proposing as far as the Iman Cemetery permit. And then also we talked about the permit for Holly Street. Once we had that discussion, I think they were more comfortable with what was going on, but they just wanted to make sure that what was done in the right of way was overseen by the city and the city staff, rather than just given a carte blanche, do whatever you want.
I think that came up
Fair enough.
around the table.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
All right, so by Ken's suggestions, I think it's a great idea. We'll put that on the consent agenda next month. If there is something on there that still piques your interest, we can pull that out of the consent agenda and we'll chat. But I think that there's enough direction here to move forward.
and are we going to disallow them the Iman Cemetery permit? Road?
So that's the next one. Dave, don't get ahead of me.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So they submitted 2, and the next one is at the end of Iman Cemetery Road. And during my research of that one, you'll see in figure 3 that there's actually 2 right-of-way permits that already exist for this one. Pat Dobley, has a right-of-way permit to protect the fence and her hedge that's there, the laurels that are on the north side of the roadway. And then Larry Krug has one to maintain his rock wall that's there. It's a little bit difficult to see, I suppose, in that photo, but it's underneath the large trees on the south side of that roadway. So I'm not seeing that we have an opportunity to even provide them anything there. So I'm not recommending that we approve that right-of-way permit request. There's that for that road, there's 60 feet of right-of-way, and there's enough room. There's 60 feet, right? Yeah, 60 feet. And there is enough room on either side to park, vehicles in parallel, but anyway, that's that guy. Any questions on that?
That's why it's not on here.
That's why it's not on the agenda. I was gonna hang on a second.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw,
Oh, there-
but it's already, it's in the packet, but it's not on the approval part yet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Is that confusing? Should we have done that differently?
No, once it was explained, totally fine.
Well, we still
I
have
just
to
didn't
make
see
a
it.
motion.
On the first one, but if the second one didn't make it past Carolyn's desk, then
and we don't have to make a motion about it.
Oh, I got it. Okay, all right.
Unless you guys want to approve it, but I recommend that we don't. And it's
So the
not up
buck
to me.
stops at Carolyn on that one.
They're both up to you because they're type Ds. So I guess the motion would be to disapprove a type D right away for 22-24.
Or no,
Right?
we-
Don't make a motion,
That's
right?
a-
we could make
That's
a
a
motion.
negative motion. Yeah, that's a negative motion.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, we
you
can't
either
make a negative motion.
to approve and have it denied, or just treat it as administrative. That it didn't make past the administrative part of this.
Right.
Okay.
not on the agenda.
Let's leave it there.
I would entertain a motion then.
And I would suggest that you can include in that motion, including the conditions as discussed.
All right, so everyone's-
Whoever's making that a motion.
Okay, motion to approve type D right-of-way permit 22-23 for Squeeny County Cemetery District parking along Holly Street, 20-foot width from center line to the west and removable at district's expense if required. With the conditions discussed by council, including maintaining public access and prior approval by the city director, public works director for future projects.
Second.
And restoration, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Got it. Thank you. All right. There are some informational items in your packet. Notice that Liana did include some costs to maintain Conocracy Underpass. One of the things that I did want to point out is item G. One of our own is been applauded by her work, and I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out to you guys. So Mary has received this fine award, or no, award?
Certification.
Certification, that's what I'm looking for. So I wanted to make a point to congratulate her in front of all of you, and if you could take the time to reach out to her and say as much, I would appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. And
Pretty cool.
I saw the letter on the last page of the packet, had the actual certification, pretty cool.
Mhm.
Yep.
So yes, if you could give her an way to go, that would be awesome. Reports, staff reports.
As Mary noted, we held a workshop for development of the capital improvement program / comprehensive plan amendment to enshrine our duty to perform capital improvement. So this is where we take the streets plan, we take the sewer plan, we take the water plan, we take any other plan that would require city investment. We put them together, we put numbers to them, lay them out over a timeline so that you all can make decisions about how you spend this money. That's workshop involved too. Members of the public, it was a very good discussion that we had and gave us some more guidance about how to get people talking about something that's kind of esoteric. So really the meat is in the individual plans and the projects of the individual plans, but we will move forward with that. We were thinking that you would have first touch in August on that. We're now thinking that additional public input that we'll give will delay that until September. We have been working.
Oh, wait, moving on from that.
Yes.
So kind of a big deal. This is something that we've been working on since pretty much since I got elected the first time. One of the big push was don't do work that you're going to tear up later.
Right.
Nothing
exactly
worse than
discussed,
having
yes.
a pretty road and then because a plan calls for it to come back through and then there's no plans to repave the road for 20 years.
Right.
The second part of that is it does show our responsibility to and our intent to take care of what we have and make sure that there's a plan to maintain it in the future. We don't want to be handing off projects that were handed off to us or at least shortcomings. So this is our way to make sure to make sure that these things are attended to
Right.
as we
Absolutely.
plan for the future.
And I think that's come up since I've been on council multiple times. We talked about we're gonna do this project, we finish that, and we go over here and, we have to dig that same spot up. And we have to, 3 times we dig the same piece of ground up. So that's the idea with this is to overlay all those timing wise and all of that.
Yeah, and we did an analog here, where we just laid out on there where the different plans call for different projects. And so we can really see which areas of town either are getting attention or do need attention. And
What are the color codes on that?
red is streets, green is sewer, blue is water, orange is fire hall, and yellow is park, light yellow is park.
I would have made sewer brown, but that is.
There have always been the plans, but now we have something that kind of binds them all together and you can visually see that the timeline makes sense. And we talked about this in our staff meetings too. Okay, well, we have this project coming up and it's been kind of this, but when it becomes firm and solid, we need to consider these other things and how they might start attaching to the other ones as they go so that we can make the most use of our money while there's a hole in the ground.
Absolutely.
And one other effort that we're building into the matrix or how to display the different project types is if an estimate was performed in the year of that estimate. And so when you all when the city initially went into the sewer plants upgrade planning, there had been an estimate in place from mid 2000s, early 2000s that said something like $2 million, $3 million. And that was taken as, that's all it's going to cost us without
In 20
considering
years.
anything that had degraded over time or the cost inflation. And so getting that number on there on the spreadsheet to see, you know what, that's an old number. Let's either inflate it or get it more realistic. I think that's one of the big issues for you. Leading to the problems that you had is that your budgets weren't built, your rates weren't built on a realistic project number, and they had to go up drastically in order to cover a hole that was predictable, was otherwise predictable.
Sorry for the detour.
Yeah, it's okay. It's also affectionately called the well duh. So well duh, we'll do the water line underneath the road before the.
Hello.
Yeah. So the downtown plan is something that we started in 2019 and we're wrapping up as COVID hit. And so that's something that we put the brakes on during COVID, and we have regrouped on that and got together. So the Stewards of Success Steering Committee got together last Friday and did some strategy setting, projects, priority setting. So that's something that
Cool.
It's not transformative. It's not game changing. It gives us a basis to make decisions on in the future, and it gives us a way to actually implement or regulate the council's.
I'm interested to see that, because that's one of the things that, you know, last time we talked about people stopping for housing all the time. It's weird that was in the last month. I've had people stop me about parking, because when you know the Stevenson Hotel opened and some different things, the flow of parking around there, along with the construction on First, has thrown some people way off. And so there's been people stopping and talking about that for sure. So I'll be interested to see what that first session looks like.
Which brings up a comment that I bring up every once in a while. Is this came up at a convention I was at, is Xerox planning, where depending on when it happened, you have to start somewhere, the building block for your codes and zones and such. So, and we still do it to this day, borrow freely and liberally, and then it just gets forgotten. But then it becomes sacrosanct at some point. And something like when we had the zoning discussion of the Hill, where, well, it's always been that way. So there have been discussions where this is the direction that we would like to go, and we have talked about it, and that is the direction we're going. But every once in a while we unearth something that's like, we haven't looked at this, not even sure where it came from, and we need to keep our minds open to accept that there is going to be something that is going to turn out to be different than the way it has always been.
Like it was, but they're just as a placeholder.
Or maybe it worked 50 years ago.
Or that's right. That's right.
All right, what's next? All right.
Thank you.
Carolyn?
Okay, goings on in the public works world. It is a busy time of year for us. In water, our larger meters were inspected just this last week. So those would be the ones going to the pool and the school and the lodge. All are operating acceptably. We're working on getting Catholic Church Reservoir cleaned and inspected, as well as Rock Creek Inlet inspected. We've been having reduced flow from Rock Creek for a while. We need to figure out why. Wastewater, Devin is going to be sitting for his wastewater treatment operators 2 next week. So send some good vibes his way. Bill will be sitting for his water treatment operators 2 in the next couple weeks. And again, send his good vibes his way, please.
Hey, so just a second. Those are our last 3 hires between Carolyn and Devin and Bill. So we were freaking out when we had 3 openings. Those 3 openings have panned out pretty good. So
Yeah.
congratulations to you and your team for keeping it going.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully they'll pass, right? Um,
Don't go crazy.
yeah, let's not have champagne bottle popping yet. And I'm not sitting for anything, so.
Hey,
Street-
You are running a wastewater treatment plant upgrade, so don't gloss
It's
over
a,
that
it's a
part.
winter. It's a winter thing. It's a winter. All you
Okay.
have to know is the winter time. Streets. You guys may have seen, I'm in Cemetery Road. We're doing a 2-inch overlay with a number of dig outs to support subgrade failure. Next week, Community County's doing that pavement job for us through a reimbursable agreement. Same on Lotes Road. They also got a pretty significant dig out and they're getting a nice overlay on their road as well. Sidewalk repairs. So precision sidewalk concrete cutters will come in and they will cut any lip on any of the sidewalks that's 1 inch or greater this year. That's going to be early August that they're coming to tackle those. We're doing striping next week. Clark County's reimbursable agreement will have us all with new stripes on all of our roads. So things will look good. I don't want to talk about First Street yet, but I'll talk to the mayor about that one on Monday. Equipment. We have a purchase of a mower. It's pending, so we should be seeing that in the next couple of weeks come down. We got our trailer purchased and delivered, or we went and picked it up. There is a vac truck in the J Stout auction for next week, which we might be interested in bidding on. So I think we're going to send someone to go take a peek at that next week, see if it'll meet our needs. We've let a couple, roll by because they didn't quite fit the bill. Too big or not a combo. Forest Use Success is helping out Public Works this week and next week. They're clearing brush around reservoirs and the back of the fire hall. And then the RFQ for engineering services, and this is more of like a Liana update, but she put together the RFQ for engineering services. That went out the first week in July, and I think it closes the first week in August. I think she gave them a month to respond, but so that's in the works as well.
Cool.
That's all I have in case anyone has questions.
Well done, Carolyn. Thank you. Well done. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
Motion to approve the vouchers as presented.
Second.
First and second, is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any reports for the greater good from anybody here at the table?
Yes. Is there Ben, do you know if there's a copy of the most recent Pioneer here in the office? I was going to bring them. I forgot to. If there's not, then
There's usually one around. They don't get thrown away very often.
yeah, let me see that. I just happened, I just opened it and my eyes just kind of wandered around and landed on without much reading. I just landed on a paragraph and it said, where is this? Oh, the Washington State Department of Highways will hold a second public information meeting Thursday, August 3rd at the elementary school to further discuss proposed improvements of State Route 14 in Stevenson. A one-way couplet through Stevenson has been added to route, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? Why the hell wasn't I informed of this? And then I realized, oh, that was 50 years ago. That's the waterhead with the bridge. They were talking about doing that 50 years ago. I think it's time we revive that conversation. So, just thought
Paul,
I'd put that out.
you've been seeing too much sun, Paul.
I was on right on the precipice of a freak out.
Yeah, I was like,
Me
wait a
too,
minute,
when
how
I
do we not
first
even hear
read
about
that.
that? What's going on?
Anybody else? All right, I don't have anything. Anything that the group would like to see on next month's agenda?
Reminder that it is early.
Oh, that's right, we're a week
Yeah.
ahead.
August 11th, I believe, is
Yep.
the date before. Yep.
All right, thank you all very much for coming. We will adjourn at 7:26.
Right, bye, everybody.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Banana.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.